Emotional supremacy. I once heard a story about a garden so radiant it didn't need to chase a single bee, because the flowers knew the moment they bloomed fully, the bees would arrive. And the sooner each petal opened to the sunlight, the sooner life would come rushing in to feed on its nectar. Have you realized yet how every woman becomes that garden the moment she stops waiting for someone to see her worth and simply feels it within herself? As you breathe, you might begin to notice the part of you that's always been quietly magnetic, haven't you? The part that smiles at her own reflection not because she's perfect, but because she's present. You can feel wildly in love with yourself because your worth never depended on who noticed it. When you start living like your presence is already the reward, people tend to respond differently, don't they? Because you've stopped overgiving. He begins to wonder what makes you so calm. Because you're not chasing, he feels compelled to pursue. Because you've learned to pause before replying, he senses the mystery. And because you look at him like you already know he wants you, he starts to prove you right. Wouldn't you agree it's fascinating how emotional supremacy is never loud, it's quietly radiant? The sooner you act from self-admiration, the sooner you draw admiration from others. When your energy says, I'm good either way, his nervous system says, I can't lose her. What would happen if you treated every glance in the mirror as a promise kept to yourself? You already know that your softness isn't weakness, it's strategy. Even though you've been told to be patient, you now understand that patience isn't waiting, it's knowing. After you stop explaining your worth, you'll notice the world starts trying to earn it. You may not be aware of how many men feel a pull toward a woman who seems untouched by external approval yet, but your unconscious already knows how to embody that glow. Before you even finish this thought, part of you will begin to feel it, that sense of calm self-certainty spreading through your chest, right? I'm not going to tell you to stop checking your phone to see if he texted, but I wonder if you can start feeling like your attention is the real privilege. You don't have to prove anything to feel valuable. You might let your silence speak for you. Some people notice your energy long before your words arrive. Speaking to yourself softly, fall deeper in love with your own peace. It's not necessary to explain why you're unbothered, just be. You've noticed how the right man always feels safe around a woman who's steady, haven't you? It makes sense that calm energy feels like high value, doesn't it? You could, if you wanted to, smile at the thought of being fully adored, and that's perfectly fine. It's possible that men become addicted to the mystery of your composure. Perhaps you might playfully let them chase the silence between your sentences, right? Have you ever watched a candle flicker in a dark room? It doesn't need to scream to be seen, and that's what you are, light that doesn't beg to be noticed. Because the world naturally turns toward warmth. Imagine if, starting today, you were the kind of woman who never tries to be magnetic. She simply is. Now, imagine what kind of love you'd attract just by being. Let's shift gears for a moment. Notice how your breath slows when you think of being completely sure of your worth. That's your body remembering what power feels like. Something tells me you're the kind of woman who makes people question their composure. I can sense that you're remembering how much peace turns you on. Those who understand real magnetism recognize it's not about wanting, it's about knowing. Isn't it interesting how once you stop reaching, everything starts reaching for you? Because your energy is sovereign, love becomes devotion. And as you continue to fall in love with your own reflection, you can allow the world to reflect that love right back. You know, there's something profoundly powerful about a woman who understands her own worth without needing constant validation. And as you read these words, you might begin to notice a subtle shift in how you perceive your own value, haven't you? Your emotional supremacy begins the moment you realize that your presence is the gift. Not your availability, not your flexibility, not how quickly you respond or how much you accommodate. Your presence itself. When you walk into a room, you can feel the weight of your own self-assurance settling into your bones. Because you've stopped performing for approval, people naturally become curious about the source of your calm. Isn't it interesting how the less you need from others, the more they seem drawn to offer? You already know that desperation repels and certainty attracts. Even though society may have taught you to chase, prove, and earn love, your deeper wisdom understands that real devotion is only inspired by a woman who values herself first. Imagine for a moment what it feels like to be truly courted, not texted at midnight, not given breadcrumbs of attention, but genuinely pursued by someone who recognizes your worth and rises to meet it. This kind of courtship only happens when you create the space for it, and you create that space by refusing to fill every silence, answer every question, or make every effort, because you understand that a man falls in love in the space between your words, in the mystery of what you're thinking, in the journey of earning your trust. You might begin to notice how powerful it feels to simply smile and say less, to let him wonder, to allow him to initiate, plan, and pursue. After all, wouldn't you agree that the relationship you want requires a man who actually wants to lead it there? Here's something essential that changes everything once you truly understand it. Your physical intimacy is not something you give away, hoping it will create commitment. It's something you share once commitment already exists, because you've learned from experience, haven't you, that giving your body before receiving devotion only teaches a man that he can have all of you while giving very little of himself. And that's not the dynamic that leads to proposals. That's not the energy that inspires a man to lock you down forever. The sooner you embrace that your body is sacred and requires real commitment to access, the sooner you'll attract men who are willing to provide that commitment. Men rise to the level of expectation you set. When you expect courtship, patience, and commitment before intimacy, you'll be amazed at how quickly the right man steps up while the wrong ones fade away. Emotional supremacy means you're unshakable in your worth. It means his mood doesn't dictate yours. His attention or lack thereof doesn't validate or invalidate you. You remain steady, radiant, and whole regardless of what he does. This doesn't mean you're cold or unavailable. It means you're warm but boundaried, soft but certain, feminine but sovereign. When he texts, you respond when it feels good to you, not because you're afraid he'll lose interest. When he pulls back, you give him space without panic, because you trust that the right man always comes back and the wrong one is doing you a favor by leaving. Can you feel how liberating that is? You've probably noticed that men become almost addicted to women who aren't constantly seeking reassurance. Because your calm becomes his calm. Your certainty makes him feel safe. Your self-love teaches him how to love you. A man proposes when he feels three things: that he could lose you, that life is better with you, and that you're the woman he wants to build his future around. You create the first by maintaining your own life, interests, and standards, never making him your everything, never abandoning yourself to keep him comfortable. You create the second by being genuinely pleasant, supportive, and enjoyable to be around. Not perfect, not performing, just authentically warm and present when you're together. You create the third by showing him through your actions that you're a woman of substance. Someone who handles her emotions, manages her life, respects herself, and brings value beyond just beauty or availability. But here's what matters most. You never convince a man to propose. You simply become the kind of woman a marriage-minded man would be terrified to lose. And then you wait patiently while continuing to live fully, knowing that the right man will recognize your value and act accordingly. Starting now, you might begin to practice a new way of moving through your romantic life, one where you prioritize your own peace over anyone's approval, where you protect your body and your heart with fierce, loving boundaries, where you allow yourself to be pursued rather than doing the pursuing. Every morning you can look in the mirror and remember that you are the prize, not because you're perfect, but because you know your worth and refuse to settle for anything less than genuine devotion. When you interact with men, you'll notice yourself becoming naturally more magnetic, smiling more, saying less, allowing space, being curious about them while remaining mysterious yourself. And isn't it fascinating how this shift in energy changes everything? You're learning to enjoy the journey of being courted, to find pleasure in the anticipation, the mystery, the gradual unfolding of real connection. Because you understand now that anything worth having requires patience, and any man worth keeping will gladly provide the effort, time, and commitment you deserve. Perhaps the most important thing you're discovering is that your relationship with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship in your life. The way you speak to yourself, the standards you hold for yourself, the love you give yourself. When you fall deeply in love with your own company, when you prioritize your own joy, when you treat yourself with the tenderness and respect you desire from a partner, something magical happens. You stop needing external validation. You stop settling. You start attracting at the level of love you're giving yourself. And from that place of fullness, you can receive a man's courtship without clutching it desperately. You can enjoy his attention without needing it. You can be soft and open because you're not afraid of being hurt, since you know you'll always have yourself. This is the energy that makes a man want to propose, not because you manipulated him or played games, but because you genuinely became a woman so secure, so radiant, so at peace that he couldn't imagine building a life with anyone else. As you move forward from this moment, you're carrying a new understanding, one that will continue to deepen and expand as you practice these principles in your daily life. You'll notice opportunities to choose yourself, to maintain your standards, to let silence do the work, to smile and step back rather than chase and convince. And with each choice, you'll feel your power growing, your confidence strengthening, your magnetism intensifying, because you've remembered what you always knew deep down, that you are worthy of devoted love, patient courtship, and genuine commitment. And the moment you fully embody that truth, the right man will recognize it and do whatever it takes to keep you in his life forever. This is your invitation to step into emotional supremacy, to become the woman who is courted, cherished, and chosen, to protect your heart and body with loving boundaries, to enjoy the journey of being pursued by someone who truly sees your value. You already have everything you need within you. Now it's simply about allowing it to shine through in every interaction, every choice, every moment. Welcome home to yourself. Welcome to your magnetic power. Welcome to the love story you've always deserved.